Tonight's guest is living proof that it's never too late to take on the impossible and be transformed by the journey. At 72 years old, retired attorney Rand set out with his younger brother Ron, 71, to hike the entire 2,200-mile Appalachian Trail from Springer Mountain in Georgia to the summit of Mount Katahdin in Maine. What makes their journey even more remarkable is what they carried with them beyond the physical weight. Rand, a recovered alcoholic, brought years of reflection and spiritual growth. Ron carried the grief of losing his beloved wife, the matriarch of a family that spans 7 children, 27 grandchildren. Together, they tackled not only the rugged terrain, unpredictable weather, and critter encounters, but also the emotional challenges that shaped them. Their incredible story is captured in Rand's book, A Spiritual Passage, a journal-papal narrative filled with 500 breathtaking photos and deeply human reflections. It's about brotherhood, healing, humor, and the power of spiritual discovery. Even in our later years, please welcome to Spirits and Stories the inspiring author and adventurer, Rand, here to share the trail, the truth, and the transformation. Hey, how's it going, Rand? Welcome to the show.
Yes, Donald. Thank you very much. Oh, it's going good.
That's great. That's great. So before we dive into your story, why don't you give everybody just a little bit of a background of how you came to this part of your life?
Walking the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah.
With my brother. Well, Ron and I are both veterans from the Vietnam War, and he married Edie, who was our mother's best friend, 14 years older than my brother. When we came back from Vietnam, next thing I knew, my brother's riding around in a convertible with this hot chick in a mini skirt and red cowboy boots, and they're going line dancing. And it turns out, she's divorced. She's got these 7 kids, and he fell madly in love with her. And they just became involved in the Mormon Church, and they moved to Utah and lived out there in the desert, St. George, beautiful place, and ended up with 27. My brother ended up with 27 grandchildren and 27. Well, that's probably 30 great grandchildren now.
Wow.
And then, but Edie had a stroke in 2011 and bad. And then she had a bunch of mini strokes. And my brother took care of her for the next 6 years. He wouldn't let anybody else. I don't even know how the heck he did it. And then she passed November 22nd, 2017. So I went to see him in January. I had never been to his house. The rest of his family and my family, our family, lived on the East Coast. So they would come east every summer to see some of the kids and grandkids, and we would hang out for like one day. And my brother was a bishop in the Mormon Church at one point. And my younger brother and I liked the booze. And it's funny because when we did get together, we would get, have a good time, get a good buzz going on. And then we would mock Ron being boring because he didn't drink. And
yeah.
So we didn't have a bad relationship by any stretch, but we didn't really have much of one. And so when I went out and see him in January of 2018, I could tell he was really not in a good place. And he said, I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail. And my brain just went, wow, no way, man. Because over the years, I had walked the Appalachian Trail and not parts of it, not all of it by any stretch. I knew how rugged and tough it was. And I thought he was kind of kidding. And then I said, well, when? He said, March 22nd. Oh, my God. Well, it turned out he'd done a lot of planning. He got a bunch of maps. He got a lot of gear. He had done a fair amount of hiking in Utah I didn't know about. I did a lot of hiking. I ran 26 marathons. So we were both pretty good shape for two guys in their 70s. But I thought it was impossible. And I said, well, how are you going to do this? And he said, well, I'm just going to take a bus down to Springer Mountain and start walking, which is the mindset of a man with some grief. You know what I mean? Not thinking straight.
Yep.
I said, well, I'll tell you what, how about we both drive down there and we'll do it together. So that's what we ended up doing. On
Okay.
March 22nd, we went, and it was snowing. Yeah.
Man, I can't. When I was reading your bio, I was thinking to myself, if my refrigerator was 10 more feet, I'm not sure I could eat. And these guys walked the whole Appalachian Trail. You know, uh, it just made me realize how much out of shape I have gotten. Over the years since I retired. And man, I had to learn more about you when I read your bio. So I know in your bio it talked about that you were a recovering alcoholic. Did that come before the Appalachian Trail, or was that something that you decided while walking that you were done with alcohol and was going to go through recovery?
No, I actually got sober in 2014, and we hiked the
Okay.
trail in 2018. So I struggled with alcohol. Uh, I came back. I liked booze from the time I was 13 years old. I knew then it was going to be a problem if I wasn't careful. In
Yeah.
fact, Don, it was actually a blessing in a way. I that first time I drank Jim Beam,
Okay.
and really went on a wild trip, and felt like I was Clint Eastwood, man. Here I
Yeah.
am, a skinny 5'8" skinny kid with acne. I mean, there's nothing charming or attractive about me. And I drink that bottle with another kid, and man, oh man, I'm Clint Eastwood. I got it all. It
Yeah.
was just incredible experience. And David, my friend, I swear I drank more than he did. He ended up in the hospital
Yeah.
the next morning, and I made a conscious decision. I'm never going to do any drugs or anything because I knew alcohol. I just knew I
Yeah.
liked it too much. So I drank, in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. We didn't drink a lot, but we drank a lot when we drank.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
We didn't drink a lot of the time. Most of the time we couldn't, but and I learned that hard work, drink hard, play hard syndrome, and I loved it and I lived it. And by the time I got in my late 50s, early 60s, it became a real serious problem. Alcohol is a disease. We know that now.
Yep.
Alcoholics metabolize alcohol differently. We create acetone. When a normal drinker doesn't do that, that acetone gives you that feeling you got to have a drink. And the more you drink, the more acetone you build up in your system, and it just you can't control yourself. And
Yeah.
I experienced that. And
Yep.
we
Oh,
talked.
absolutely. And it doesn't help. It seems like bourbon was for history reasons, or I'm not sure why, but soldiers, tend to migrate towards just bourbon in general, from collecting it to drinking it to everything. And it's not uncommon. I have a collection of bourbon myself. I don't drink a whole lot. I drink maybe 3 drinks a month, you know, and but when I was younger in the military, just like you said, it was play hard, work hard, you know. And I definitely gave it my best attempt to drink Korea completely out of alcohol the year the year I was over there. I'm not gonna lie. Um, so I definitely get it. You're not alone, and a lot of people out there. And congratulations on your sobriety. I
Yeah.
think that's awesome. How much of that in the past, kind of, obviously you've seen your friend that was struggling. How much of that in the past, also with your history, kind of brought that idea in your head? Well, I'm not letting him go alone. I know what going through things is like, and the challenges life presents. How much of that was a deciding factor to go with him and make that a joint effort?
Well, like I said, I had done a fair amount of hiking in the Smoky Mountains and other areas. Uh, there's a lot of critters in the mountains.
I bet there is.
I like to do solo overnight hikes, and I like taking risks. And I got in a real bad situation with a bear one time that didn't end for like an hour and a half. I mean, he was fake charging me, and I was fake charging him because we're in a standoff. And most people don't know, but bears can't see very good, right?
Yeah.
Smell really good, and they can go very, very fast.
Yep.
And so what they do is if something runs, they assume it's food. So the worst thing you can do is you see a bear is run, because they're going to think food, and they're
Yep.
going to, and they can run 25 miles an hour and they're going to get you real quick. And there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it. Now we had stuff we carried, but that one time, man, I just knew it was there's a lot of danger there. And I don't know. I felt like being the older brother. I didn't know I was treating the greatest when we were growing up. We grew up really poor. My father was a Mustang pilot during World War II, and all my uncles were in the military. My father got out of the right in. I was born in 1946, January 1st, and my father got polio. Spent 8 months in an iron lung.
Yeah.
Lights from the waist down, and that put us in poverty, and I hated it. Like, and I'm the oldest brother, so I was always had to be with my dad. He was a hardworking man, so I'm the gopher, and my younger brothers and sister. I have another brother and a sister. So anyway, we came from a hard scrabble life.
Yeah.
And my brother actually enlisted in the Army before I went off to college trying to make it, and anyway, I'm in college. I'm working as a janitor from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week. I'm a pin setter in a bowling alley. I got no money. I'm taking these college courses. I have no idea what I want to do. And I like to drink. And I got drunk one night, and I'm laying on a pool table. This is how I got in the military. I'm laying on a pool table the next morning. I come to on the pool table, and the owner of the bar comes in and starts cleaning up. He doesn't even look at me, and turns the radio on, and they were talking about 1st Marine Division going into Vietnam. And I'm laying there thinking, you're working as a janitor, you got no money, you're going to college, you don't know what you want to do. And jumped up. He looked at me, I looked at him, I walked out the door, and I never went back. I went to Syracuse. A month later, I'm swearing to defend my country against enemies, foreign and domestic. And 9 months later, I'm in Vietnam I'm in a rice paddy going, whoa, what the hell have I done?
Far-fetched from being a janitor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Gave up the broom for a rifle.
Yeah, really. Well, I went to Paris Island, and with a bunch of guys that got drafted. A lot of people don't know. That bus that went to Paris Island, half of us were guys who enlisted. The other half were ones that were drafted. And all the way down there, they're yelling at the sergeants, the Marine sergeants, I'm on the wrong bus. And they said, nope, you're in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And that was a hell of an experience. I'm sure you know, too. You're a veteran also. And then the Marine Corps was only about 200,000 people in 1966, right?
Yeah.
It went up to 1 million in the late 60s. So when I got to Paris Island, that place was churning like crazy. They dropped from 12 weeks down to 8 weeks. And I'm in my civilian clothes, and they don't even have anything for us. And so what I spend the first week in Paris Island doing in my civvies, cleaning toilets. I'm doing the same damn thing I was doing, because that's what I did as a janitor. That was my whole job, was cleaning all the toilets in this high school I was in.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Buddy. Full circle right there.
Yeah.
So how long were you in Vietnam? Was you there for a year? Because you weren't drafted. You actually volunteered and enlisted. So
I was there for 13 months with the 1st Marine Division. I got there in late October, early November. It was monsoon. It was raining buckets. Got all my gear, and we're going to the, you were talking about suicide. This is a really sad story. So they had what they called a transition tent. So it's for people that just came in, like I was, or people that were going back out. We were at 1st Marine Division Headquarters Battalion, and then you would go from there down to the airport and fly to Okinawa. And that's how I came in reverse. Took me to the Army in the rain. I got my grenades. I got all my stuff. Going to this transition tent, and another guy that was leading me that knew where to go. And as we got to the tent, a gunshot went off. And all of a sudden, the tent just explodes. I mean, guys are just screaming and yelling and coming out.
mm-hmm.
I couldn't go in right away. And they took the body out, and I went in. And so these guys, they're in shock. See, they were leaving, but they hadn't taken their weapons away. They hadn't turned their weapons in yet. They were going to do that the next day. Yeah. Anyway, they all got we used to get our mail like once a month in a big bundle. So when those guys are coming out of the field, they're going home, right? They're done. They're going home. They get their mail. They got all their weapons and everything. They're sitting on their cots, reading their mail. This guy opens up his mail looking for one letter, finds the letter. He opens it and it says, "Dear John, I love you, but you need to know that I met somebody else and I got married."
Oh, wow.
And he picked up his pistol and blew his brains out. That was my first night in Vietnam.
Man. And,
Yep.
I hate to say it, but I don't think that's a single story. I think that's, you know, just historically all the way through the military, you know. Um, I don't know about so much for World War I and II, but I know from Vietnam into my era, suicide has been a major issue, and it doesn't always happen right then and there. There's just I just literally on our radio station we just did a memorial to a veteran singer that took his life Sunday, and he wasn't a younger man either. He was in his 60s, 70s, so he'd been out of the military for a while as well, and it's unfortunate, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure it did not help your anxiety for being there. That's for sure.
No, it did not.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you do 13 months in Vietnam and you come back. Do you get out of the Marine Corps, or do you stay in the Marines?
I stayed in the Marines. At the end of my reign there, if you will, misadventures and all that, they made me a Mustang lieutenant. Have you ever heard that term?
I have not heard Mustang Lieutenant. I've seen.
It's a nomenclature the Marine Corps uses for somebody that's made a temporary lieutenant in a combat zone.
Okay.
In World War II, they called them combat lieutenants, right?
Okay.
Because lieutenants didn't last long, just to be honest about it.
Yeah.
And so they made me one the last couple of months there. I was a corporal. I would have been promoted to sergeant. And then just as I was leaving, I would have gotten out shortly after I went back home because I had enlisted for 2 years. And they say, well, you can go back and be a sergeant, or you can go to OCS and we won't be able to take your commission away. You'll be a real live officer. So I said, okay. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, Donald, because when I went home, like a lot of other guys, I almost got in a fight in LA at the airport on my way home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 300-pound gorilla decided he didn't like my looks and could have ended badly. All of a sudden, I'm surrounded by 4 stewardesses and he's in handcuffs being led away. And they put me in first class. Big mistake, man. I drank my way home.
I did that on my way to Korea. I am in processed Korea, not sober. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but when I came home, the first couple of weeks were really strange. You spend 13 months. Your rifle is always right there. M14. Your grenades are right. Everything. And then all of a sudden, you're back in this world that you left. You're not the same person anymore, right? Yeah. And you've got all this trauma and worry and everything else. And it was hard to adjust. And I drank my brains out with my buddies, and a couple of them had been in the service, and got engaged to somebody I just met, and who became the mother of my children eventually. But anyway, and then I went. So that 30-day leave was just zoom, 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 and then I went to OCS. Well, now I'm right back in. In a way, it was the best thing that happened to me in the basic school. And then I decided to go into the air part, the air wing.
Okay.
I didn't want to be a ground pounder anymore. And I showed up at Cherry Point, my new duty station. I had a gunnery sergeant that became my guardian, and I did not even know it. This is really a weird tale. So I show up. He got a Mustang commission too. Only now he's a captain. I don't know how he went through so fast, but they had made him a captain. He's the captain of the day. I check in. He goes, "You want to go to a school?" I don't know. Well, he shows me a sheet, and he said, "Well, we got the school in Rhode Island." And I go, "Rhode Island? What the heck is that?" And he says, "It's a JAG school, Judge Advocate General. It's military lawyers, right?" I said, well, what the heck? Why not? Because I had some Article 32. You know how they train us to do in that. So I went over there. They were all captains. There's 99 captains and this lowly second lieutenant who doesn't know anything in their minds, right? They've got their undergraduate degrees. They got their law degrees. And a bunch of us got rented a mansion because it was the off season. So they're starting to party every night, which I was inclined to do that. But then I thought, you know what? I might be able to do something with this. So I studied really hard. And guess what? Graduation, I am the platoon honor man. Wow. I got the highest scores.
But that's because you had enlisted background. Had you gone straight into OCS, you'd been like the rest of them. That NCO Corps is what brought you there.
Yeah, that's true, I think. Anyway, what it did was it gave me my career. All of a sudden, I had a mission. I went back to Cherry Point. I was a defense attorney for a couple of cases. One of the guys I had was charged with sleeping on watch. Well, the Marine Corps, that's 2 years in the hokey, right? Yeah. I mean, that's serious business.
Yes.
And I don't know. I called another Marine as a witness. The panel is not jury of your peers; it's colonels and majors and like that. Guess what? They acquitted him. The prosecutor was so ticked off about it. And then I had another one shortly after. So then they ended up making me a prosecutor. And so I was doing our 32 trials. Been trained to be a forward observer. I'm supposed to go back to Vietnam. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm kind of a high level resource in a way, if you think about it. This is 1968, 69 time frame. And every time it's looking like I'm probably going to go, I get orders to go down to Roosevelt Roads, a Navy base in Puerto Rico, and do Article 32s for a month.
Oh,
prosecute, wow. All the guys down there that got themselves in trouble. And so that happened twice. And then the second time I said to this captain, who had been my gunnery sergeant way back when, who when I left was a gunnery sergeant again, and I was a first lieutenant. And I said, I don't understand why I'm not going to Vietnam. And he goes, you stupid son of a gun. He said, how do you think you keep getting sent out to Puerto Rico? I'm sending you down there so that by the time you come back, you've rotated back down the bottom of the list. So I never went back. He said he knew if I went back, I'd probably get killed for sure. I'd have so many close calls, but yeah.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate because, we talked about this in one of my other episodes, and a lot of our guys in my era always ask, why is it that things are so different between Vietnam and us? We seem to be doing a lot more talking, podcasts and therapy and all those types of things, which is a great thing. And I made one statement. I said, well, let me ask you something. If every time you talked about your service, somebody spat on you or called you names or threatened you, would you continue to talk about it? And that was the big difference. We had a welcoming coming home. We had a nation behind us, and Vietnam didn't. And it made it even harder because you guys hadn't. I mean, what are you going to do? Talk to the VA back then? If we thought the VA was bad now, we should have been back then. It was really bad back then, Yeah. So, yeah, you guys were unfortunate. They didn't have much options for you guys.
No, they didn't have any. It was actually worse than that too, because I had some friends that came back. So they come back. Can't remember where the heck. Oh, I guess I was at Quantico. They come back. They're spit shine. They're in their uniform. They got a plate full of medals. They're sergeants in 2 years, they fought. They're real men, right? Then they go on leave, and they would go down to the Outer Banks. They rent a motel. They get a bunch of booze, and they'd end up getting drunk, and they'd waste their whole leave. And they're supposed to be on 30 days leave, and they come back in 35 days. And then the Marine Corps would court-martial them. We would court-martial them. And then the next thing you know, they're walking around their PFCs. It was just so, and they start committing suicide. And if they didn't put a pistol in their mouth, they just did it by drinking. I lost a lot of friends in the Marine Corps, veterans that couldn't cope. They could not cope.
Yeah. Yeah. And it hasn't changed since then. It should tell everybody out there, combat isn't what you see on the news. It really isn't. Um, it's you can judge things a lot differently from a safe location in a house watching TV. And um, it's hard to come back to that, you know. Um, you hear it from every veteran today. We all say that we would go back in a heartbeat because life was so much simpler. We didn't have the red tape, and you dealt with things in a different way over there. And
Yeah.
it definitely made it more challenging. So when did you actually get out of the Marines?
I got a Marine Corps in 1970, and I went to Syracuse and went to Syracuse University. I was married, had one kid, had another kid, and working, full time because I didn't have any money. The same thing, the GI Bill didn't pay the tuition at Syracuse,
Yeah.
and but I got, I worked my ass off, which was a good thing. I didn't have any money, and I worked hard, so the drinking wasn't really a problem during that period of time for sure. My brother came back. He ended up being an airline pilot after him and Edie got married, and he had his family, So we kind of just buckled down. And my dad, when I came back on that first leave, we were going out to the airport, and I started telling him a little bit about Vietnam, and he starts beating me over the head with a newspaper like I'm 12 years old. No lie, Donald. He's hit me. I go, what are you doing? He said, don't you ever talk about it. Just put it in, it's over. Put it in the back of your mind and don't ever talk about it. And then I got to thinking, well, my uncles never talked about World War II. I know one of them was on D-Tag. Another one was a gunner on a B-17 or B-24, whatever it was. These guys they never talked about it. Never.
Yeah.
And then I found myself when I was with veterans, we didn't talk about it. Vietnam vets, we didn't talk about it. We sure as hell didn't talk about it in front of other people because nobody would believe the stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. And then, I had my challenges when I came back. I did 68 months total between Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And when I got out, I was already planning on killing myself before I even walked away from the military when I retired. And luckily it didn't come to that. I ended up finding help before that happened. And it's it is challenging trying to adjust, when the person that you didn't like you just killed versus coming back here and now you can't even hit that person that makes you mad. The whole different world. You have to deal with things in a different way, and you have to be more understanding. And that's just, I associate it this way. The military gives you everything that you need to survive, to include in combat, whether that be Vietnam era, whenever. But what that is to survive combat. They give you the emotion you need, which is nothing but anger. That's the only emotion that you know.
That's right.
And then they give you the equipment you need. At no time after that do they ever give you anything else in your toolbox to take with you when you leave the military. So
That's right.
the only emotion you still have to deal with all problems in the civilian world is anger. And it's tough to adjust when you have a lack of tools,
That's true.
Absolutely. So you guys get ready. You're there. You're on top of the mountain. You're getting ready to head out on the Appalachian Trail. What went through your guys' mind as you started out? Was it excitement, or did reality finally hit and say, "Oh, this is going to be a long trip"?
We were excited for sure. I took 5,000 pictures. There's 500 pictures in my book, and then in the book we describe where we went every day, from where to where, and then what we saw. And I took pictures, so you could actually kind of walk the Appalachian Trail by reading the book.
Okay.
What we did every day. But I was pretty nervous. I had an artificial knee, my left leg. My right leg is a half-inch shorter. I like to brag I'm the limpiest man that ever walked the Appalachian Trail. We had no idea how hard it was going to be. I fell down every day. I broke 4 sets of hiking. It was unbelievably difficult, but I like to hike. I hiked it with the mindset, I'm never going to go this way again. I want to take a bunch of pictures. My brother was more about just going from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And we both had our traumas, from the war and stuff. We actually did open up with each other a lot about what we had been through.
Yeah.
And his son Rick was with us first 2 weeks, and then he finished up the last part of it too. He was not in the military, but I don't know. We had a lot of great talks and stuff. It
Yeah.
was an amazing experience. My brother was shocked when I did the book. The first time I did the book, I did it for family.
Mm-hmm.
But I also talked in the book about my recovery, because I didn't have God. The first time I got caught in a battle and men were actually dying, they seemed to do one of two things. They were either crying for their mothers. A lot of them do that. People don't know that. Or they're trying to make a real quick unsigned contract with God.
Yep.
Well, I didn't believe in God. And especially when the men that I saw being killed around me, I always felt like they were better than me. You know what I mean? That they were really good, solid men. And I would just be filled with rage, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And the phenomena I experienced was when I realized somebody was actually trying to kill me, that would really piss me off.
Yeah.
And it was more like, I'm doing you first, right? So, so I didn't have any spiritual power until I got recovered from my alcoholism, which I used as a medication when the night terrors would take over.
Yep.
The rest of my adult life. And Ronnie had the same thing. So we did talk about some of that stuff. Let's talk a little bit about, do you mind, about the Appalachian Trail itself? A lot of people don't realize,
Yeah.
like you
Absolutely.
said, yeah, it's the Appalachian Trail goes from Springer Mountain, Georgia, which is in the northern part. It goes up to Katahdin in Maine. It's 2,190 miles long. It goes over 600 mountains. 300 of them have names, right? It
Mm-hmm.
goes up and down 465,000, 100,000 feet.
Man.
The elevation changes. It is the longest foot trail only in the whole world. And the big thing that people don't realize is that if you did it in the 1970s, it was a couple hundred miles shorter, because the original trail did not go over the top of every mountain.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. The ones, and I'm not saying it isn't hard, but over the years they rerouted it so that every mountain that in the Appalachians that the trail used to go by or around, and logging trails, dirt roads, other paths. I mean, let's face it, the Indians and the settlers didn't go over the top of the mountains.
Right.
They went around. They went the easy way. So.
Yep.
It's a lot harder than it used to be, and over the years, it's gradually gotten a little longer, because we need to go over that mountain over there, right?
Now, this trail, is it built like, designed for hikers, or is it like not maintained? It's overbrush and stuff like that. What is the thoughts on that?
I would say it's probably the best maintained trail in the whole world.
Okay.
Over the years, they've done a great job. You have, in Harper's Ferry, there's the conservancy there, the Appalachian Trail, the official conservancy is there. And then you have other sections north and south of there. They have built unbelievably beautiful stairways in some places. A lot of the trail either goes across or up rock slides. There's rock slides everywhere. People don't realize that. And so in a lot of places they made it. I mean, you come to a rock slide in a mountain, especially if it goes straight up,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at it and you go like, this can't be right. And then you see the white blaze. It is right. I got to climb this, It's crazy. But a lot of beautiful scenery. Every day I would just wait for that moment where my heart would just go, oh, look at that. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Yeah.
And I think, there's some things that are related here. Some of the best bonds come from adrenaline and close calls. I mean, that's why the military guys are so close to each other, is from that kind of lifestyle. And you and your brother being out here on this trail, like you explained, of how long it is, and the terrain and everything, you didn't have no choice but to bond like that. It's now you and him, and trying to get to the other end of this. And so that danger alone, between the critters, the weather, you said it was snowing when you guys left. So it wasn't like you started out on sunshines and rainbows, you know?
Oh, no. There 3 million people hike on some part of the Appalachian Trail every year,
Hmm.
but only about somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 actually try to hike the whole thing. And out of that number, 17% actually make it.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're talking about 400, 450 people. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, I would fall down. Like I said, I fell down every day at some point. A lot of times in the afternoon, I would get so fatigued that my legs would start bouncing off of each other, or I'd find my hiking pole between my legs, like it was not supposed to be there. And I would fall down. I go, oh my God, what are we doing? And then I would think, well, nobody's shooting at you, Rand. What the hell's your problem? Get up and go. So I kind of had that mentality, for sure. But it was an amazing challenge. I mean, one day I'm sitting on top of a mountain, I'm sitting on a rock, and another hiker came along that I knew. And she said, oh, this is another thing. Half of the people in the first part of that trail until you get to Harper's Ferry were women. A lot of women hiking it, trying to do it. Yeah. And it was just amazing. And she goes, Rand, there's a copperhead under that rock? I go, are you kidding me? This is in the book. I wrote a lot of stuff like this happened. I look down, I go, oh yeah, that's the head.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
how do you get off a rock with a copperhead? Your feet are right there. You got to use them, right?
Yeah.
Well, I stood up real slow and gently moved away. I think that in that case, it was early in the morning. It was still kind of like a little cool.
Yeah.
The snake wasn't really hyperactive yet, but
Yeah.
they
Yep.
can move real fast. Don't think you can outrun one. You can't.
Oh, no, no. What is it? Like 2.5 times the length of their body they can lunge,
Yeah.
I mean, it is insane. Um, so how many days total were you guys walking? Because it's not like you could just stop at the local Dollar General to get more food. So you either had to start with enough to know how long it was going to take you, or fish and hunt on the way.
Well, we had two vehicles, so that made a big difference. What we did in our research, we realized there's a road of some fashion crossing the Appalachian Trail every 10 to 15 miles.
Okay.
So we figured out, well, we don't have to, hike it with a full pack the whole way. So what we did was, like when we left Springer Mountain, Ronnie drove up to one of those roads that crossed the Appalachian Trail and parked his truck. So he walked south and I walked north.
Okay.
And then we would meet in the middle. And then he would continue on and get my truck and drive around and come back up to his car. And then we would just stay. I like to brag that I slept in a tent every night on the Appalachian Trail. I did. But a lot of the times my truck was right there with all the food and everything in it that we needed it. I mean, I don't believe anybody our age could do it the traditional way. I
No.
just don't think it's humanly possible. At
And
one
I
point,
don't think that was y'all's point either. Your point wasn't to prove anything other than find each other and connect. Helping your brother go through some of the things that he was going through, and being a partner. So I don't think it was about that, anyways. But I think it's an amazing adventure. What would you, if you had to pick a day, what day would you say was like, holy crap, I'm thinking about quitting?
oh my God. Well, I did quit at one point. I got a very bad infection. I didn't know what was going on. I had my brother had some leg pain too. But I had wicked leg pain. And when we got to Fontana Dam, which is like at that point, like we'd done 95 miles. So it's right on the northern part of Georgia going into Tennessee and into the Smoky Mountains and all that. And the pain was so bad. Anyway, it ended up I had an infection
Hmm.
in my blood. I have hammer toes, So all the tops of my toes were rubbed raw.
Yeah.
So every night I had my socks were full of blood,
Yep.
and I had I had fungus on my toes from Vietnam, never gone away,
Yeah.
and so that gave me a really bad infection. I ended up in the hospital. Doctor said I was about 12 hours. I was septic. I was about 12 hours from
Wow.
kicking the
Yeah,
bucket.
that is
So
dangerous.
yeah, so I got quadruple the normal antibiotics, and they told me not to do anything for a week. And then I asked Ronnie what he wanted to do, and he said, "Let's keep going." And I went back, and we kept going. We averaged 11 miles a day. Took us about 9 months. Two stretches, we went 30, 31, 33 days without stopping, which is insane. Most people take what they call a 0 day. But every time we think, well, we'll take a 0 day tomorrow. And then in the morning we wake up and we look at each other and go, what are we going to do? Sit here all day long?
Yep.
We would just go, you know. A lot of amazing things happened. In let's see, I think it was June 19th that we had to jump around a little bit. The Smoky Mountains got a foot of snow. So we jumped up to Damascus and went up into the southern part of Virginia. And then we went back and did the Smokies. We jumped around. There are sections where you have to carry a full pack. There are 35-mile sections with no roads. So we did that like 3 or 4 times in the Priest and then the Smokies, south and north of Clingman's Dome. I'm sure you know where that is. Yeah. Beautiful country up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a lot of challenges. My brother had the night terrors one night. Bad, really bad, screaming. He said, we got to quit. I can't do it anymore. And I knew if he, in the middle of the night, if you're a veteran with a lot of trauma, the middle of the night is a nightmare. It's just, and that's when you make really bad decisions sometimes.
Yep.
I knew that my brother might regret it. So when we got up, I made him some cocoa and calmed him down. And I said, look, bro, let's just do the hike today. And then if in the middle of the day you say, I don't really want to do this anymore, we'll quit. And that's what we did. So when I met him, because we always met in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
He never said a word. And I'm like, because I had kept thinking, we can't do this. I kept thinking, I wrote in the book, when I gave Ronnie the first book, at 2 weeks, I said 2 weeks max. I was convinced that we could not possibly do more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When he read that, he goes, did you mean that? I said, absolutely. I did not think there was any way the heck we could do that.
Yeah.
Then in August of 2018, we were getting into, I think we were almost to New York. And it was one of those days, it was 100 degrees, 100% humidity. I'm 155. We both lost about 35. You can't possibly eat enough calories
Yeah.
to make up for it's like being in the military. Like I went to Vietnam, I was 150 pounds. I came home, I was 115 pounds. I looked like a POW. I was emaciated. And when I came out that afternoon, I looked at him and he said, you want to go home? And I said, sure. So that's how we ended up 2018. And I figured we were done.
Yeah.
Then the next year, he goes, you want to try to finish it? And I said, sure. So we went back and did another. Actually, we only did like 100 miles or so. And then I fell down a rock slide in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, my God. It was so bad. I had climbed this rock. I'm like 10 feet from the top, but it's a bad one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my poles slips. All I had to do was fall face forward. It would have hurt, but I would have just fallen down on the rocks and I would have been all right. But I missed, caught, and it flipped me around 180 degrees and I dove off
man.
the rock slide. And I closed my eyes, Don, because I thought this. I mean, I've been shot. I've been all kind of, this is going to hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I had no idea. When I finally stopped, I couldn't even open my eyes. The pain was beyond anything I ever could have imagined. I mean, I had blood everywhere. My foot had got caught between two rocks. That's what had stopped me. I probably would have died for sure.
Yeah.
So now what do I do? There's nobody around, right? And I'm 10 feet from the top. Well, now I'm 20 feet from the top, but or I got to go all the way down and go the 3-4 miles back. There's no getting out of there except walking.
Yeah.
So I crawled to the top and just started walking. And of course, you probably know you get hurt bad. If you start moving, eventually that pain turns into more like a throb
Yeah.
and an ache than the real. So I kind of, it got a little bit better. When I met my brother, he goes, "What the hell happened to you?" You know, I had blood all over my arms. I scraped up my arms and stuff.
Man.
And,
You know, I had a boss tell me once, he had me working off a ladder up on fixing his sign out in front of his automotive shop. And while I was up there, he looked at me and he said, "Just remember, if you fall, oh shit sounds a lot like I quit." So I could definitely imagine, you know, you falling. How many times you said I quit?
Yeah. So the next morning, my body was froze up. I didn't realize I had done major damage to my hip.
Yeah.
And so we went home. We're kind of tough guys. I didn't do too much for a week. Started hiking again, walking every day. And then he goes, "You want to try to finish it?" So I said, "Sure." And we went back and we got into the Whites. Washington was close. We went north of there. We did Moosalak, which is a really tough mountain. And then we did Wolf. And then we went back to do Washington, which was going to be a 3-day full pack thing. And we started that. And I started crying. I went partway up the first hill and I turned around and looked at my brother and I just started crying. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm out of gas. I was totally out of gas. And so he said, "Well, you want to just like do a day hike and we'll see." And I said, "No, I'm done, bro." So anyway, turned out I really had done a lot. I was in wicked pain.
Yeah, I bet.
So Ronnie finished it with his son without me, and I was having a hip operation. So altogether, it took us 9 months roughly. I made it. I only did 1,863 miles, I think. Only. I have a picture I took on Wolf Mountain. Somebody had put 1,800 miles in it out of, pieces of, I don't know, leaves, whatever. I can't remember exactly. So I have that picture, but yeah, I didn't actually do the whole. I only did 1,863 miles.
Wow, that's a lot. That is a lot. So let me ask you this: if you had to pick one area that you were in that you just found the most beautiful, where would that have been?
I would say it was in Virginia. The pictures I took in Virginia are just absolutely stunning. You're not that high up, really, a couple thousand feet, but the trail, once you get up, you're kind of going up and down quite a bit, but there's a lot of places there you come off and you'd be standing on a rock and you could just see forever. There's almost always raptors. One of the pictures, there's a dog standing next to me. And I'm on one of like these things where you can see just this beautiful panorama. I mean, it's just gut wrenching, like, oh, look at that,
Where'd
But
this come from?
I don't know. This dog came out of nowhere. And it stayed with me for half a day.
Wow.
Disappeared.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
He had some trauma and was doing the trail with y'all.
Yeah. A lot of funny things. A lot of funny things in the story. One day I was in, I think it was in Shenandoah Mountains, and it was June 19th, I believe, 2018. And my brother and I always left at daybreak. I mean, most of the other hikers didn't leave. And now we're far enough ahead. A lot of days I didn't hardly see anybody because I'm going north. Yeah. My brother's seeing a lot of people because he's coming from the north. And everybody else, most people 98% go north from Springer Mountain. And so I'm hiking up this mountain and I hear somebody behind me and I turn around and there's 3 people. And one of his name was Growler. He's a great big, like a mountain man type guy with a full beard. And his companion lady, young, beautiful little woman, her name was Coors Light. And there was another lady with them. And they're naked. They have no clothes on.
What?
And I go, what the heck? And they go, oh, you didn't know this is nude day on the Appalachian Trail. And I said, well, I'm gonna do everybody a favor. And I'm gonna leave my clothes on. So they're faster than me. So I pull over, they walk by, Growler's in the back. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going up the mountain and I'm behind them, and there's Growler. And the name of the mountain is Hogback Mountain. So I'm following this nude guy, looks like Paul Bunyan, going up Hogback Mountain. And then when they pulled away from me, I think I might have let them get out of sight, actually.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
When I got the
Crazy.
top, a couple hours later, they were dressed again, and I looked at them, and they looked at me, and we just chuckled. They said, well, that's not as much fun as it's cracked up to be.
I can't even imagine a nude day doing a trail like that. That is just insane.
Oh, yeah. You got ticks. You got all kinds of critters.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the wear and tear. I mean, you know as well as I do, road marching, what your feet feel like when you're done. I can't even imagine if I had no shirt on and had a backpack on without a shirt. You know, all the chafing and the rubbing. Oh yeah, it'd be miserable. I couldn't even imagine it. What is you encountered a lot of critters and I'm sure snakes and stuff like that, but did you hear anything like mountain lions or bobcats at night while you were sleeping?
Might have heard some coy dogs, coyotes, probably. A lot of bears. I walked under a tree one time and I was hurting. I was having a hard day, and I smelled the bear.
A lot of people.
I kind of heard a noise, and I smelled, and I thought, "Oh my God, there's a bear in this tree right above me." So I just kept walking up slow, and when I got up the hill, eye level, I turned around, and yeah, there was the bear. Snakes. There was. So my brother and I, we're doing it the old man way, right? Most of the young people in there had earbuds on.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you went to a shelter, I went to all the shelters so I could log in. So if anybody ever asked me if I actually did it, I could say, I got proof, right? Now, my brother never left the trail. He didn't go to any of the shelters because they're never on the trail because there's no water on the top of the mountains, right?
Right.
The shelters are all down off. Sometimes we're as much as a half a mile away. I would go down the shelters. Well, usually before I could see the shelter, I could smell the marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
So what you got during the daytime is you got all these young people, men and women, hiking with stuff in their ears, not looking that great. And they kind of got this glazed over thing. So if I came across a deadly animal like snakes, I would always try to get them off the trail.
Yeah.
And one day there was a rattler, big rattler. And he's right in the middle, and he's coiled up. I mean, he's in fighting mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to get him. I'm doing a really bad, seriously stupid game trying to get him to get off the trail. Most of the time they go right, they'll get right away. He wouldn't go. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I look down, and right beside me, there's a chipmunk. And it's got 2 little spots of blood on it. And it's quivering. And my brain goes, oh, he just bit it.
Yep.
Right? That's his meal.
Yep.
That's why he won't go. So I was pretty nervous doing this, Donald, I'll tell you. But I very slowly reached down and grabbed that chipmunk, kind of twirled it around so he could see. It was locked onto me, and I threw it as hard as I could right over the snake's head, right into the woods. That snake went, boom. I mean, I couldn't have shot an arrow faster than that snake went. And that just another one of those times where if that snake had wanted me, there was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, your only protection is some snake boots, the increased shields that go up by your knees,
Yeah, I'm not wearing that.
Yeah, not hiking. No, absolutely not. Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Rand, I'm gonna bring you forward if there's anything that you would like to share with the people, some advice or anything. I'm gonna give you your moment to say anything that you would like.
Okay, well, I did write a book about it, which I think you did show very well in the introduction. I have a website, randtimmerman.com. It's just my name, no dots or anything between. And my hope was, because I'm a recovered alcoholic, I talked about how I recovered in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a sponsor that helped me. I had a psychic change, we call it. I became a spiritual man.
Mm-hmm.
God took away my obsession. I'm totally convinced of that now. I believe everything I thought about being an atheist was, ended up not being true. And so I wrote about that. I'm hoping that the book will inspire people. If you want to do the Appalachian hike or think about it, you can see how we did it. But a lot of people can be inspired by it. If you have difficulties in your life that are preventing you from doing things, you think you're too old or whatever. I'm not saying everybody in their 70s is going to go hike the Appalachian Trail. I'm not saying that at all. But I think you will be inspired to believe, you know what, I used to like to do this or that. I'm going to start doing that again. I've had stories have gotten back to me of people that have read the book that they found new hope. They found a new way to maybe go about things that made them feel a lot better about themselves and where they were at in life. So I'm hopeful that it will help people.
Absolutely, Rand. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll make sure that we got the links to your websites and to your book there where it's spots where it's sold, and make sure that everybody has access to get it. I appreciate you coming on. I think this was an amazing story. You guys did one hell of a feat. My hat's off to you, and I think you really provide the veteran spirit. The willing of not giving up and fighting through some things. I think you're an inspiration to a lot of people. So I appreciate it, Rand.
Thank you, Donald. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. As we say in the Army, ho.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw the exit video out real quick, and then I'll be right with you. All right.
Okay. Thank you.